video, I will demonstrate how to perform a mediation analysis in process. The example for this video will be a research on a Beachbody Ready advert that ultimately was banned from public spaces like London Underground. And we have asked people about their attitude to advert, and we also recorded their self-esteem and perceived media pressure. So what we're interested when we conduct mediation is how the mediator variable affects the relationship between predictor variable and outcome variable. So does self-esteem mediates the relationship between perceived media pressure and negative attitude to advert? So i.e., does self-esteem work like a bridge variable that reduces the relationship between independent variable and dependent variable to zero, or substantially reduces it, making it either non-significant or the strength of the relationship is much weaker. So in our example, the dependent variable is negative attitude to advert, the independent variable is perceived media pressure, and our mediator is self-esteem. To answer this question, we need to perform mediation analysis using model 4 in process macros. There are a number of models that you can use, and if we look at the template of the models, we can see that model 1 is the simple moderation model. Model 2 is double moderation model. Model 3 is moderated moderation model, and model 4 is our simple mediation model. So what we are testing when we look at the mediating effect of self-esteem is basically this model. Media pressure predicting attitude to advert, and self-esteem works as the mediator variable or like a bridge variable bypass. So let's perform our analysis in SPSS. So to do this analysis, you had to install Process as an add-on, and the process menu can be located under the regression. So if we go to the regression, here is the process menu. When you open it, here's the new window, and what's important is to assign variables. So Y variable is the dependent variable, so it's our outcome variable, and negative attitude to advert should be placed under the Y variable. X variable is the predictor variable or independent variable, and we know that in our model we specify that media is our independent variable. And then our mediator is self-esteem. The next thing you need to choose is a model. So in this current version of Process, the default is set to 1, but in other versions of Process or in Windows-based SPSS, the default model is usually set to 4. So as you remember, we need model 4 in order to perform our mediation analysis. So we select model 4, and in options you can select total effect size for model and effect size for mediation only models. And to see what additional options can be selected and how to interpret a full interpretation of the output, you can consult Andy Field's book. So we press continue and we press OK. So we have set up our model. In this case, the bootstrap is set to 5,000. Whenever you have a bootstrap set, the SPSS will take a little bit longer to compute. Okay, so here we have the output, and the first important part is this one. So you know that you are testing model for the attitude to advert is your dependent variable, media pressure is independent variable, and self-esteem is the mediator, and total sample is 107 people. So outcome variable is self-esteem. So we want to see if there is a relationship between media and self-esteem. So in this case, we can see that there is a relationship and it is significant. The next bit that is in the output is basically like a multiple regression model. So you have your R squared, you have your F ratio. It says if the model overall is significant. Um, sorry. And then you have your media pressure and self-esteem. And in this case, we can see that media pressure is significant and self-esteem is also significant. And here we have confidence intervals. So the previous model had confidence interval. This model has confidence interval. It's important to understand how to read them. So basically, they are 95% confidence intervals, and you want them both to be either positive or both to be negative. And the main idea is if the confidence intervals do not include zero, then your result is significant. So basically, the likelihood of the coefficient to be zero, i.e., having no relationship, is unlikely in this case within the population because both values do not include zero. If one value is positive and another value is negative, zero is a potential outcome, and the coefficient that can be equal to zero is not going to be significant. So in our case, we have our coefficients and we have their significance level and their confidence intervals. Now, the next model we look at is the attitude variable, and we look at the media predicting attitude variable. And what we can see is the effect is strong if we just use those two variables, and this effect is stronger than the effect when we also had self-esteem in the model, and it's significant. And now the most important table for mediation is this one: total direct and indirect effects of X on Y. So total effect of X on Y, so we have our effect for media. We know that X is the media and Y is the attitude, so, and this value is identical to this value, just in case you don't like that it doesn't have the name of it. But so this is basically the direct effect, and it's highly significant. And the next row, shows the indirect effect of X on Y. So this is a total effect. This is the direct effect, and this one is indirect effect of X on Y, so via the self-esteem. And in this case, we are looking for the confidence interval. It doesn't have associated significance level. So in here we see that both values are positive, so zero is not likely to occur in a population. So we consider our result as the significant. So in our case, what we see that the effect of media pressure is reduced when we have self-esteem in the model, but it does not become not significant. So it still remains significant. And what we have is the significant indirect effect for self-esteem. So what happens with our model as a result? So we do not lose this arrow, but this arrow remains in the model, but in a way we will conclude that it's not that self-esteem is the complete mediator, because we still have this relationship. What we conclude is self-esteem mediates or partially mediates the relationship between media pressure and attitude to advert. And this is basically it for understanding how to perform the mediation analysis in process and how to interpret the output. So to sum up, you're interested in this part, which tells you what's entered in a model. You want to see that your predictor variable relates to your mediator variable, because otherwise, like, how can they mediate the relationship if there is no connection? Then you're looking at how the two variables work, how they predict the attitude to advert, and it says outcome variable attitude. So this is our basic multiple regression model. And then we have the outputs for media. So if we only had, so this is like a total effect model with the media as the main predictor. And in here it's a repeat, the total effect model, so exactly the same as this part. Then we look at the direct effect of media, which is still significant, and we look at the indirect effect of media on attitude via self-esteem, which in this case is also significant. So therefore we conclude self-esteem partially mediates the relationship between perceived media pressure and negative attitude towards the advert.